been our privilege to play host to 64 amazing school teams from across India, Nepal, Middle East, and Africa, who have been engaged in some phenomenal debating for the last 2.5 weeks. Every day, the quality of debate has gone from strength to strength, and today we have 3 schools which have qualified for the quarterfinals. Today's debate is between the new Wurood International School, Jeddah, the Ramjas School, New Delhi, and the Shri Shikshayatan School, Kolkata. Before we move on to the debate, we are very proud and privileged to be powered by Stayfree. Stayfree, as you all know, is a brand that works for women's hygiene and does a phenomenal amount of great work, particularly for young women who are just entering their puberty. Here's a short message that they wanted to share with all of us before we begin.
मेरे पीरियड शुरू हो गए।
पहली बार हो रहे हैं मुझे, तो काफ़ी अजीब लग रहा है।
पीरियड्स में मुझे आसान काम भी मुश्किल लगता है, बहुत दर्द होता है।
मैं किसी के पास बैठ भी नहीं सकती और जब मैं उठती हूँ बार बार निशान चेक करती हूँ।
घर में एक ही वॉशरूम है तो पैड चेंज करने में मुझे शर्म आती है।
मुझे पैड को कचरे में छुपाना पड़ता है हर बार।
She may not understand what she's going through. She just needs to know. You do. Over 2 million girls will get their first period in lockdown. Your daughter or sister could be one of them. Talk to her. Tell her.
It's normal. It's just a period.
Well, after that short, heartwarming message from Stayfree, it's time to move on to today's debate. Here are the 3 teams that have made it to today's debate. The new Wurood International School, Jeddah, topping the list in their pool, the Ramjas School, New Delhi, and the Shri Shikshayatan School, Kolkata. This is the topic that we are debating today. This house believes cross-border sale of lethal weapons should be banned. I repeat, this house believes the cross-border sale of lethal weapons should be banned. A quick look at the judges. As you know, our format has changed a bit since our pool stages. We now have 3 independent judges. Today, we have Devi Mukhopadhyay. Devi Mukhopadhyay calls herself a learner unlimited. Having been a teacher trainer, English language examiner, and an at-home baker, a traveler to remote places, she has learned about people, customs, and most of all, about herself. We are also privileged to have with us Mr. Philip Barrett. Mr. Philip Barrett retired from the illustrious Doon School after 44 years of serving in various educational institutions. He retired as the deputy headmaster of the Doon School after serving the Doon School in various capacities, including the dean of activities, in which capacity he has overseen and adjudicated over thousands of debates. We are also very pleased and privileged to have with us Mr. Devendra Tuck. Mr. Tuck is the General Manager, Media and Communication for Save the Children and a member of the steering committee of its global media unit. In 2015, he was the global spokesperson following the Nepal earthquakes, and in 2017, he was deployed to Somalia as the global media manager for the drought response. He has co-authored the book, We Are the Champions, with Rashmi Bansal. Judges, it's a privilege to have all of you with us. A quick check. Do you all have access to your scoring sheets?
Yes, Shubhayu, I have.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, I also have it.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. On to the teams today. For the new Wurood International School, Jeddah, we have Nabil speaking for the motion, while Usaid will go against the motion. For the Ramjas School, New Delhi, Suhani is speaking for the motion, while Khushi will be speaking against the motion. For the Shri Shikshayatan School, Kolkata, we have Kaushiki speaking for the motion, while Shudikha would be speaking against the motion. Abhishek, could you please confirm that Usaid has joined us? Yes, Usaid, we see that you have joined us. Thank you so much. Well, we have the judges ready on the scoring sheets. We have the participants raring to go. So let us begin. This would be the order in which we would go. We will start with Nabil, followed by Khushi, then Kaushiki, then Shudikha, then Suhani, and then finally Mohammed Usaid. Nabil, if you're ready, I will stop my share and we would love to have you introduce yourself because a lot of people here are meeting you for the first time.
So for those of you who don't know, some of you might know me already. My name is Nabil Naushad. I'm representing Wurood International School. It's a great privilege to be here, and I hope I can give my best performance and make your time worthwhile. Thanks.
Nabil, your audio is a little choppy.
Okay.
Could you just check your...
Yeah, 1 second. Just a minute.
Sure. We just want to make sure that every argument reaches the judges crystal clear, with no chances of them missing out on any arguments because of an audio drop.
Hello, am I audible now?
You're audible. You're perfectly audible. There's a bit of a noise in the background, but I don't think that will be a problem.
Okay, 1 second. Just 1 second.
Yeah.
Okay, now is it clear?
Perfect.
Okay, sir, thank you. So,
all right, Nabil, ready to go?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So, Nabil, if you're ready, we will start your time. 6 minutes on the clock now.
Look, 2020, the year there will be world peace. Children in Yemen will have food access. Of course, that paper is some blunder because we are not even remotely close to achieving world peace. 2020 was particularly remarkable. We were ever so close on experiencing a third world war. But don't despair. With no regulations on weapon trade whatsoever, we can have this world war in the near future. Good evening to one present here, judges, fellow contestants, ladies and gentlemen. World peace, a concept that was promised when nations became weapon traders. It's been many years, and world peace still hasn't reached us. Instead, we have gotten further away from it. It has become nothing but a fading terminology. But it will help stabilize a nation. If you are one of those people who have smuggled themselves in this lie, I'm sorry to apologize. I apologize for you for bursting the bubble. But it does not. The intended destinations of these weapons are very often not their final destinations. 9 times out of 10, these weapons end up in the wrong hands. And 10 times out of 10, the results are catastrophic. I know my opponents are in disagreement right now. So let me just give some facts for all you number lovers out there. A report published by the UN shows sales of weapons from 2001 to 2005. It has increased by 3/4. One thing to note though, the number of casualties from direct conflict has also increased by 3-fold. And if we compare the numbers, we can see a proportionality. So to sit there and say there is no need for scrutiny is either really arrogant or really stupid. It's also interesting to note that 80% of the weapons that are sold are by the 5 permanent members of the United Nations Security Council. You know, the ones who are supposed to watch over us. And if we look at these countries which project themselves as messiahs, curbing terrorism by selling weapons, we can see a similar trend. 2 things. Number 1, there is no decrease in terrorism whatsoever. Second thing, the suppliers, for some reason, are always rich, while the ones who buy are most probably poor and sinking further into this abyss of poverty. The report suggests the US has done a business of $49 billion just from the Middle East. And if one of those newspapers have reached your home and you had the courtesy to read it, you will realize the humanitarian crisis in Middle East is far from over. But don't worry, for the US has enough oil money to make up for it. Even though the terrorism increases, oil money increases. So I guess it's all right. In Africa, there is a nation called Somalia. It's considered the most dangerous place on earth. Why is it so? It's because, according to a report by the UN, they have 4,500 deaths reported in women and children. Imagine, AK-47s are easier to afford than safe drinking water. The safe drinking water which you and me will be gulping after speaking 6 minutes about them and not caring afterwards. The great scientist Richard Gatling, after inventing the Gatling gun, said, "I have created an invention. I have created an invention so strong, no human being will dare to go in the path of war." But I guess his expertise in engineering didn't translate to his expertise in understanding human nature. I hope my worthy opponents still have enough humanity inside them to accept the ongoing injustice and condemn the slaughter that is happening right in front of their eyes. If not, I'm afraid you are no different from those blood-sucking corporate monsters who have reached the sky by climbing on the pile of dead bodies. Then again, it's never too late to turn back and bring some goodness to the world. War is commercialized every single day, but let's make a better world where war shall not be commercialized and children shall wake up to the chirpings of birds rather than the firing of machine gun. Thank you, and back to the panel.
We thought this show could use some sound effects, but Nabil, very well done. Let's see if the judges have started scoring you. Judges, if you could please score Nabil's arguments. Barrett sir, have your scores. Thank you so much. Mr. Tuck, I have your scores. Thank you so much. Ma'am, if you could just move your cursor from the last cell, I would be able to see that number. Thank you so much. Well, Nabil, if you can see your screen, these are your scores at the end of your 6 minutes of arguments on your screen now. Very well done. Khushi, you're up next. Let me stop the share. We would love to know you a little better before we start with your arguments.
Sure. A very good evening to everyone present here. I am Khushi Dikshit, a student of class 12, commerce stream. And I believe that academics and co-curriculars are of equal importance. So I always try to strike a balance between the two. And I'm a keen learner, and today I look forward to learning a whole lot of new things from my comrades through this debate.
Well, Khushi, if you're ready with your arguments, we will start your time now.
If a finger is cut by a knife, it's not the knife's fault, but the fault of the person who doesn't know how to use it. Thus, imposing a ban on sale of knives would be quixotic. My fellow mates are advocating an impractical situation because the current tensions that prevail amongst the powerful countries of the world say something else. Today, as in the past, technology is fundamentally changing the face and nature of warfare. The opportunities offered by new or emerging technologies are boundless. There is need to concentrate on those technologies that are important, and this cannot be done by debating upon banning sale of lethal weapons. Furthermore, wars today are not fought by just physical means, but through intellectual propagandas like demonstrating the weapons and arms in a country's possession in order to establish its goodwill in front of others in context of warfare. Terrorist groups active across the world like ISIL, Al-Qaeda, Lashkar, etc., and underworld people like Dawood Ibrahim are still able to manage to acquire lethal weapons from somewhere or the other, despite 97 countries of the world having publicly elaborated their views on sale of these weapons. But I would like to ask a question to my opponents, that would a ban be really effective in this case? Is it not known to all that Pakistan illegally sold nuclear weapons to Iran and North Korea illegally procures arms from China? If trading of nuclear weapons, in spite of being unlawful, still continues, then what is the guarantee that a law to ban LAWS, lethal autonomous weapons system, would give the outcome that my opponent mates desire for? And if this outcome is so uncertain, how can they decide whether it is the right measure to take or not? Secondly, the idea of new arms race is indeed a cause of concern. However, the campaign to stop killer robots reports that at least 6 states, US, UK, Russia, China, Israel, and South Korea, are already developing and testing autonomous weapons, while another 44, including India, are exploring their potential. The fact that every member of UNSC refused to consider a ban on GGE is a powerful indication of how unsuccessful a ban is likely to be. To this, my rival mates would say that a ban on biological weapons showed positive results. Then why can't we do it for LAWS? To this, I want to say that the non-linear spread of COVID-19 pandemonium has already made it clear that a ban cannot stop the virus, which is already being regarded as a biological weapon of China. Banning trade of these weapons won't hinder their development in future. In present too, they will find a way to penetrate into our systems. Practically, it is important for all countries to procure these weapons, as a country lacking them would be prone to attacks by others. Moreover, these weapons increase the cost of aggression, thereby deterring conflict or maybe the Third World War. Thus, they act as a peace-mongering agent, while at the same time being a symbol of what mankind can destroy. These bans would simply cover up the issue with a white cloth and not resolve it. A ban can't instill human tendencies to destruct, but resolutions to channelize the human potential resources for developing sustainable solutions that in the end benefit mankind can. And with this, ladies and gentlemen, I rest my case, but not my stance, that banning cross-border trade of lethal weapons is no solution and hence should not be done. Thank you.
Well done, Khushi. Some wonderful arguments there. Let's see how the judges are scoring you. Judges, remember, Khushi is in column F. If you could please put in her scores in that column. Mr. Tuck, I have your scores. Thank you so much. Barrett, sir, I have your scores. Let me know if you would want me to take that.
Yes, Shubhayu. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Ma'am, I have your scores. Thank you. Khushi, if you're looking at the screen, these are your scores after your 6 minutes of initial arguments in front of you. Well done. Let's see how your other friends do. Kaushiki, you're up next. We would love to have you on camera, please.
So am I visible and audible?
Yeah, we can hear you. We can see you. Great. Kaushiki, we would love to know you a little better before we start your debate.
Yeah, thank you, sir. I'm Kaushiki Ghosh. I'm from Shri Shikshayatan School, Kolkata. I'm a 12th grade student of the humanities stream and I take keen interest in world politics and international relations. Thank you.
Wonderful. Kaushik, if you're ready with your arguments, we will start your time for 6 minutes now.
Thank you, sir. The young Afghan refugee on the cover of National Geographic in June 1985 was an enigma for 17 years. Wrapped in a tattered maroon shawl, she fixes her gaze at the camera, meeting eyes eventually with millions of people. Her eyes see green. They are haunted and haunting, and in them you can read the tragedy of a land drained by war. A very good afternoon to respected judges, moderators, sir, and members of the House. This is Kaushiki Ghosh representing Shri Shikshayatan School, and today I propose the motion of the House. Every day, thousands of arms, their parts and components, accessories and ammunitions are produced and sold, imported or exported on the global market for a variety of reasons, mostly related to supposedly security. Yet firearms also play a leading role in the generation of armed violence, crime, insecurity, and as a lucrative income-generating commodities to finance other illicit activities. Comparatively cheap, widely available, extremely lethal, simple to use, durable, and portable, armaments are among the most wanted commodities in the world. No region in the world is exempt from the dramatic consequences of the violence associated with these weapons. Ladies and gentlemen, let's face the fact that in India, the expenditure on defense constitutes 15.5% of the central government's budget and 2.1% of India's estimated GDP. Whereas the present government of India's spending on the healthcare industry stands at 1.15% of the GDP. It is quite evident that because of the funds that are diverted towards the defense sector, we are unable to facilitate the growth of the healthcare industry in India. The Cold War is perhaps the largest and the most expensive arms race in history. In this arms race, the USSR managed to match the US from time to time. And where did it lead the Soviet Union? We are well aware of the corruption pertaining to the arms trade. This hardly comes as a surprise, but the number of cases found, including many that are yet to be coming to the spectrum, make it clear just how deeply rooted corruption is in both international arms trade and in domestic arms procurement. This problem is global. The typical pattern tended to have of arms trade corruption was of a Western company bribing a third world country to secure a deal. Relative wealth, democracy, and reasonably strong institutions are no guarantee against corrupt arms deals. The compendium includes cases where buyers and buy recipients are Austria, Belgium, Greece, Israel, Portugal, and the US. The dividing line between legal and illicit transfers is not always easy to establish in practice and depends, amongst others, on the national legal framework of all states involved in the transfer. If the cross-border sales of lethal weapons fall into illegal hands, the consequences could be treacherous. The ordinarily protracted Iran-Iraq war that lasted longer than either world war was sharply asymmetrical in the means employed by each side, because both sides exported oil and purchased military weapons throughout. Iraq was further subsidized and supported by Kuwait and Saudi Arabia, allowing it to acquire advanced weapons and expertise on a much larger scale than Iran. Arms trafficking affects all parts of the world and impacts on society in multiple ways. It is a major concern in the context of human security, and it is the central law enforcement efforts and activities. Arms are instrumental in much violence, particularly homicide. They're often used by criminal organizations and their support operations related to arms conflict and terrorism. The Taliban seemingly rose out of thin air. How? A non-existent organization rising to power. Although no documentation is officially surfaced that the CIA directly supported the Taliban or the Al-Qaeda, but some basis for military support of the Taliban was provided in the early 1980s when CIA and ISI provided arms to Afghanistan, resisting the invasions of Soviet Union in Afghanistan. Pakistan is being accused by its neighboring countries and other nations of the involvement in terrorist activities in the region and beyond. Pakistan's tribal region along its border has been described as a safe haven for terrorists by the Western media. Pakistan is perhaps the world's most active sponsor of terrorist groups, aiding these groups that pose a direct threat to the world. Have we forgotten the 26/11 attack in Bombay? Have we forgotten the aftermath of that attack? And are we willing to witness this kind of mass killing where hundreds and thousands of innocent lives are lost? Wars with gas, wars with fire, victory with no survivors. My next point, ladies and gentlemen, is chemical weapons and its tragic impact. The Greeks first used sulfur mixtures with resins was producing suffocating fumes in 431 BC during the Trojan War. In the later centuries, chemical warfare began with the use of chlorine and other toxic agents during the First World War. The period between the First and the Second World War can be characterized by the era of synthesis and the production of nerve agents in Germany. Agent Orange was a powerful herbicide used by the US military force during the Vietnam War. Agent Orange contained the deadly chemical dioxin later proven to cause serious health issues. In addition to the massive environmental devastation of the US deflation program in Vietnam, that the nation has reported more than 4 lakh people were killed or maimed as a result of the exposure to Agent Orange. Vietnam claims 500,000 children have been born with serious blood defects, while the many 2 million people are suffering from cancer and other illness caused by Agent Orange. Millions of Americans in Vietnamese people are still directly and indirectly affected by the wartime use of Agent Orange. Dear audience, give it a thought, where do we draw the line? We are unaware how the dinosaurs disappeared from the world. But if we humans continue to engage in conflicts and warfare, humanity is sure to wipe out just as Thanos wanted. Members of the opposition might pose this question on us: is it possible to achieve world peace in the current conflict world? But ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you, peace is the first step to progress and the final step to prosperity. We can acquire the attitude, understand the basic essence, and develop universal fraternity and brotherhood to achieve international peace and prosperity. Martin Luther King once said, "We have before us the glorious opportunity to inject a new dimension of love into the veins of our civilization. We, the people of the world, will grow as global citizens. We, the people of the world, will live with fraternity and brotherhood. We, the people of the world, will look at the world with similarities and not differences." Thank you.
Thank you, Kaushiki. That was very well argued, but you went significantly over time. So, judges, please note that Kaushiki's arguments were about 7.5 minutes. So, please mark her accordingly. Kaushiki is in column G on your score sheets. If you could please put in the scores. Barrett sir, I have your scores. Thank you. Mr. Tak, I have your scores as well. Thank you. Ma'am, I have your scores as well. Thank you so much. Well, Kaushiki, if you can see the screen, these are your scores after your initial arguments on your screen now. Well done. Shrudika, you're up next. Welcome back to the 0 Hour. We would love to have you introduce yourself for the benefits of those who did not see you last time.
Right. So a very good afternoon to everyone present here. I'm Sudiksha Basu from Shri Shikshayatan School, and I am from class 11 of the humanities stream. And as I've already mentioned, I'm an avid reader, I'm passionate about music, and quite evidently, I fervently enjoy debating.
Wonderful, Shrudika. If you're ready with your arguments, we will start your 6 minutes now.
It was the night of 3rd May, when most of the citizens of our nation were blissfully asleep. India's security was under threat. Yes, I'm talking about the Kargil War of 1999. India, caught off guard, stupefied with the unwarned infiltration of the Pakistani army, still managed to emerge victorious on the 26th of July, 1999, that we today celebrate as the Kargil Vijay Divas. We defended the nation, its pride, its honor, and its people. Would the Indian Army have been able to protect our nation without the aid of weapons? In a country where 50% of these weapons are imported? I certainly don't think so. Now, the concept of weapons or violence or war is usually daunting to most people. Of course, in an ideal world, conflict would be resolved over dialogue, no one would go to bed hungry, and violence would be hypothetical. But much to our dismay, that is but the stark reality. A very good afternoon to the judges, moderator, my worthy opponents, and my dear audience. I am Sudiksha Basu representing Shri Shikshayatan School, Kolkata, and I firmly stand against the motion this afternoon. Since this house believes that the cross-border sale of lethal weapons should be banned, at the outset, let us understand the implication of the term lethal weapon, not the Hollywood flick, but from a realistic perspective. It is not the weapon in itself that makes it lethal, but the intent of the one who wields it. Let me explain with an instance. The biblical story of David and Goliath. During their single combat, David hurls a stone from his sling and hits Goliath in the center of his forehead, killing him and finally vanquishing him. A stone. Does that count as a lethal weapon? I'll leave that for the audience to decide. Formally, lethal weapons in war include machine guns, grenades, bombs, so on and so forth, which are, in context of international relations, more relevant as deterrents than their lethal potencies. The sale of weapons in itself is a state subject, as per all international conventions and treaties like the Arms Trade Treaty, the Firearms Protocol, and the UN Register of Conventional Arms, to name a few. As per the UN Security Council, governments remain central providers of security. That is their sovereign right and responsibility to be performed in conformity with the rule of law. For that, they need weapons which they acquire through national production or through import. And import is cross-border sale. Not all countries have the wherewithal to manufacture or produce its own weapons because of the lack of technology and natural resources. And as I mentioned before, it is the country's sovereign right to security, which is unequivocally facilitated by armed weapons. The cross-border sale of weapons helps to maintain the necessary equilibrium of power among all the nations of the world. If nations are not militarily self-sufficient, the chances of them being engulfed by more powerful nations is inevitable, which is quite evident in cases like Tibet in China in 1950, and more recently in 2014, the Ukrainian province of Crimea encroached upon by Russia. In this context, let us look at the Indo-China conflict and compare the stature of the Indian military in 1962 with the present day. Today, as a nation, we are diplomatically, strategically, and militarily stronger. And that, members of the House, could only be achieved with the necessary procurement of weapons. Lately, we all spotted and rejoiced the arrival of the dynamic multi-role Rafale aircrafts into the Indian skies, which were procured through a government-to-government contract with France. And this contract has placed India at a position at par, if not superior, in comparison to her at times intimidating neighbors. Now, if the cross-border sales of lethal weapons are banned, it will only boost the illicit trade of arms instead of reducing it. So let me reiterate, members of the House, with a legal transaction, a treaty, or an agreement among nations, in obedience with all the international conventions, is imperative for international peace and stability, resulting in economic and social development. Members of the House, the need of the hour is not to ban the cross-border sale of weapons, but to control and regulate its commercial transaction legally. Ever since the advent of the idea of nationalism, most nations, including mine, have perceived their land using the allegory of motherland or Matrabhumi in India. Ladies and gentlemen, there are innumerable brave hearts who are defending our borders relentlessly, even as we speak this afternoon. They're deprived of being at their homes, away from their families. They are deprived of being with their loved ones through thick and thin, no matter how much they wish to do so. They are people just like us, but they are ready to do everything they can to defend our nation. This supreme sacrifice needs to be respected, honored, and guarded by providing them with the ability to defend themselves, which can only be achieved with the aid of weapons that are at par with the weapons that the enemies are using. Unfortunately, due to the repeated inhuman attacks of the enemy nations and terrorists on our soldiers, we have already lost and continue to lose many lives. So I would like to ask you, members of the House, can we afford to lose more lives? Don't these unsung heroes deserve to protect themselves from the brutalities of the attackers? Give that a thought. Over to the moderator.
Well done, Sudiksha. That was very well debated. Let's see how the judges are scoring you. Judges, Sudiksha's scores go into the last column, the sixth one, and I can see the scores coming in. Ma'am, I have your scores. Thank you. Barrett sir, I have your scores as well. Thank you. Mr. Tuck, I have your scores as well. Thank you. Well, Sudiksha, if you can see your screen, these are your scores at the end of your initial 6 minutes on your screen now. Very well done. Suhani, you're up next. We would love to have you introduce yourself for the benefit of those who have not met you the last time, and welcome back.
Hello everyone, my name is Suhani Mohan and I'm an 11th grade student and I have taken up humanities. For those who don't know me, I have a keen interest in political sciences and sociology and I absolutely love reading books. Little Women, Pollyanna are some of my favorites. And I also like to compose poems. And as I told earlier, I like to brush up my speaking skills from time to time. And these debates provide me with a different perspective to analyze things around me. Looking forward to a great debate.
Wonderful, Suhani. If you're ready with your arguments, we will start your 6 minutes now.
Deadly, fatal, death-leading, life-threatening, dangerous, destructive, and I could go on. What you just heard are some of the words which can be used in place of lethal. But does it change its meaning? Lethal weapons, humanity is threatened. I repeat, lethal weapons, humanity is threatened. Good afternoon, honorable adjudicators, moderator, my fellow participants and members of the audience. I believe the debate is already won and it is an open and shut case. This house believes that cross-borders lethal weapons should be banned. And why just cross-borders? I find no reason to justify the floating of lethal weapons across the city itself. But I will come back to this point later in my debate. The earlier known purpose-built weapons in human history date to the Bronze Age. Maces, which were little more than rocks, mounted on sticks, had questionable value as hunting tools. But look at us now. Since that time, weapons have been refined to maximize the killing potential while minimizing the ability of one's opponent to retaliate. And yet my learned opponents intend that we shouldn't ban this very end of humanity. The USA, Russia, France, Spain, South Korea, Germany, China, United Kingdom, Israel, and Italy. People, I present you the world's 10 biggest arms exporting countries that made armament transfers worth more than $25 billion. Well, why do you think a country like the USA agrees to sell arms at a very low price? Supportive nature. I would like to term it as a strategy. These countries simply want to expand their power and make other developing countries dependent on them. These poor countries fall into the vicious trap and stay indebted to the other country forever. A great example set by China, who is arming India's neighbors and turning the region into a very dangerous place. First, Beijing buried India's neighborhood under debt. Now it is supplying weapons. The string of pearls is being militarized and converted into a noose. Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, and Myanmar. They get weapons and billions of dollars as loans from China. It will not just put China in the center of world trade, but it will also be a way for China to boost its military presence. It is a colonization project, the 21st century version of the East India Company. And why to go away? Have you all forgotten about the weapon drop in Purulia district of West Bengal? For the ones who do not know about this act, the Purulia arms drop happened on 17 December 1995 when unauthorized arms were dropped from an Antonov AN-26 aircraft in Purulia district in the state of West Bengal in India. These weapons that seem to be a safeguard are nothing but a part of a long chain of subversive politics. If we do not ban these deadly weapons, then a dream of a peaceful world would just remain as a utopian vision. Why do we hold these peace summits and do propaganda propaganda while we are in full support of cross-border weapons. Either you ban these furious summits or the weapons. It is like a person who wants to be healthy, but is in full support of junk food. Such hypocrisy. The cross-border selling of arms and ammunition has led to significant rise in crimes. There are so many weapons that are frowned upon by the whole world. These weapons have no place in civilian society. The Convention on Certain Conventional Weapons bans the use of non-metallic fragments, poisonous gases, landmines, blinding laser weapons, and the development of lethal autonomous weapons would be catastrophically destabilizing the society, and time is running out to prevent them from being developed. Killer robots? Is it justified at all that a machine kills people or takes decisions about life and death? Biological weapons. Nuclear weapons are the elephant in the room where the deadliest weapons in the history are being discussed. The proliferation of nuclear weapons have provided humankind with the ability to inflict upon itself the sort of extinction level event that was previously achievable only by straying into the path of an asteroid. Are we waiting for other weapons to raise their destruction level? The whole world is a part of this big game. Pakistan sells nuke technology to Iran, North Korea illegally asks for arms, and India itself exports arms. And we, the people, as spectators of this game, and unknowingly, under the threat that there will come one day when the most powerful weapon will be launched and we'll be ruled by it. If India sells such weapons to the neighboring countries, then the same weapons can be used by them against India. We could have never imagined that a country like Nepal would go against India. Some of the detrimental effects of the spread of conventional weapons include many threats that were rooted in illicit arms, including the flourishing of terrorist groups in West Africa and the Sahel. Other regions threatened by the spread of illegal arms included Africa and Middle East, as pointed by Egypt's representative. Quote, as commander of an Air Force combat hospital in Baghdad, I witnessed too many times the horrific injuries these weapons create. An injury from an assault weapon too often left little hope for life and limb. Many hit by these powerful engines of death never made it to the operating room. Unquote. Words by Dr. Dean L. Winslow, a retired Air Force colonel and flight surgeon. Any firearm, device, instrument, material, or any other substance that is capable of producing greatly bodily harm or death from the manner it is used or intended to be used may be referred as a lethal weapon. Dear audience, please raise yourselves from the status of a subject to that of a citizen and come out of this fantasy world and question the very relevance and the use of weapons. Remember, deterrence has so far in the history of mankind never proved to be successful, never proved to be successful. Thank you.
Well done, Suhani. Some powerful argument there. Let's see how the judges are scoring you. Mr. Tuck, I have your scores. Thank you. Barrett sir, I have your scores as well. Thank you so much. And ma'am, I have your scores as well. Thank you. Well, Suhani, if you're looking at the screen, these are your scores at the end of your initial 6 minutes of arguments on your screen now. Very well done. And Muhammad said, this is where we come to you. We would love to have you introduce yourself for the benefit of all those who did not meet you the last time.
Yeah, my name is Muhammad Said. I'm a grade 12 student of the science stream. And naturally, my interests are science and technology. Those things really interest me, especially the gimmicky gadgets and all that stuff. Really looking forward to this debate, and making through to the quarterfinals is a true privilege for me.
Wonderful. Said, it's been our privilege hosting all of you here. If you're ready with your arguments, we will start your time on the clock now.
When your own country is in the middle of a great war, lacking the resources to fight back, that's when you realize that the nation needs weapons for maintaining peace. Honorable panel of jury, my very worthy opponents, and of course, the lovely audience out there, a very good afternoon to you all. Today, we debate on whether cross-border sale of lethal weapons should be banned. and I, without a hint of a doubt, disagree with this motion. International trade is not only essential for substantial growth of economies, but also plays a vital role in strengthening amicable relations between countries. Take a look at USA and the Middle East, for example. The largest exporter, USA, with the largest importer, Saudi Arabia, have never seen greater relations in their lives. Even India imports weapons from France and the US. The fact that we live in an age of mutually assured destruction doesn't help at all. Diplomatic tensions are now at an all-time high. The only way to prevent this is to investment in armaments. Now you must be like, wait, hold on a second. You're telling me buying weapons will give us peace? Well, this is a counterintuitive process. If countries are able to strengthen their defenses, other countries wouldn't dare as much as laying a single finger on them. During the World War II, Japan's Marshal Admiral Ishirotoku Yasahu very precisely stated, and I quote, "You cannot invade mainland United States. There would be a rifle behind each blade of grass." We have 9 superpowers in the world having possession of nuclear weapons. They can easily wipe out existence of the entire human race within a matter of seconds. And that's exactly why no country is going to open fire, which ultimately means peace. And as far as weapon trafficking is bad point is concerned, we must keep in mind that we are discussing weapon trade and not weapon trafficking. They are absolutely not the same, and we should not get them mixed up. Weapons are a very serious matter, so we best ensure that it is under the influence of some international organization or national organizations at the very least. On the contrary, barring firearms will most definitely push criminals into illegal methods of smuggling weapons. I like to call it the kid with hot iron effect. You tell a kid specifically to not touch a hot iron, and he slaps his palm right onto the unbearably hot iron. It's the same with drug addicts too. Psychology 101, if you ask me. But here's an idea. Stop the government from trying to restrict and ban guns. Banning and restricting guns only affects the law-abiding citizens. Criminals, on the other hand, will always do what they need to attain weapons for crime. We should start worrying about the criminals, the mentally ill, the bullied ones, because they're the ones who are most likely to spread terrorism using these firearms. So what we need is effective regulations in the right places, not just banning the whole thing. And that's precisely where the Arms Trade Treaty comes into the picture. The poorly regulated global trade in conventional arms and ammunition fuels, conflict, and human rights abuses is what exactly the Arms Trade Treaty promises to reduce. Implemented effectively, this treaty can help transform the way the arms trade operates. It will set new standards and enshrine in international law strict controls on the arms trade, and it has already been proven to do so in the Eastern European countries. Furthermore, it will allow countries with high export capabilities and technologies to share their research with the ones that import them. This will help them generate their own weapons, all the while creating sources for conducting extensive academic research and more jobs for employment. That, in my mind, is one of the best ways we can do this. The ATT is here to stop the violations of human rights to one of the most effective methods we've ever seen. Dr. Topher McDougall, a PhD and professor at the JBK School of Peace Studies, led a research on firearm trafficking and found the lack of legal gun retailers in Mexico has caused people to illegal smuggling. We see that if you ban something, they resort to illegal smuggling, as stated earlier. As much as 350,000 firearms have been smuggled in a year alone. The solution he offered was a robust background check on these buyers, and you guessed it, a weapon trade system regulated by both countries' national organization. Now, I may be a bit biased, but I couldn't agree more with Dr. McDougall. Banning the cross-border sale of lethal weapons would be the worst mistake of the century and the ones to come. Not only would it have devastating effects on the economy, but would cause outrage and disunity in relations. Weapon trafficking rates would skyrocket, not to speak of public protests and inevitably violence, something that we were trying to avoid in the first place. The point is, when you fall off your bike and scrape your knee, you don't just chuck away the bike and say, never again. You put yourself up, you dust yourself off, and wear knee pads the next time you ride, taking extra precaution. All in all, with 155 countries in the UN General Assembly supporting the Arms Trade Treaty, this Independence Day, we can all strive and hope for a peaceful tomorrow. Thank you, and over to the moderator.
Well done, Usaid. Just like last time, some powerful arguments. Let's see how the judges are scoring you. Barrett, sir, I have your scores. Thank you so much.
What's up, check?
Mr. Tuck, I have your scores as well. Thank you. Ma'am, I have your scores. Thank you so much. Well, Usaid, if you're looking at the screen, these are your scores at the end of your 6 minutes of arguments on your screen now. Very, very well done. I think Nabil's expression there said it all. Well, don't forget that there is a rebuttal. This time the rebuttal carries more weight than last time. So hope you guys are all ready for that. Nabil, we will start with you. If you're ready with your rebuttal, we will start. Are you okay? Good to go?
Sure.
Great. So if you're ready, we will start your time for the rebuttal now.
Once again, thank you for the second opportunity to restate my points. Lethal weapons are necessary to curb terrorism, maybe in a theoretical aspect. But when it comes to reality, let us look at a country, Afghanistan. Afghanistan has been taking weapons from Russia over 30 years now. And guess what? Terrorism hasn't stopped. It has become more war-torn by every passing day. So theoretical aspects aside, practically buying weapons doesn't make a country immune to terrorism. And this is a wonderful example for it. And a lot of countries who have lethal weapons are not safe from terrorism either. And many countries like Saudi Arabia, who is taking many weapons from America, are using it on Yemen. And the dying children and their faces say it all. What lethal weapons can do to a country and how a population can be massacred can be seen in the faces of these children. And yes, they have been useful to us in curbing terrorism in some aspects. But in this century, with this much technological advancement and intellectual and diplomatic stances, we can surely find an alternate solution. To be arrogant enough to say there is no alternate solution is a bit close-minded. And as intellectuals, let us be open-minded and find that there are other potential solutions to this problem. And our brave Jawans, yes, they are brave, they are doing a great service for nation, and yes, they do need weapons. But when a guerrilla warfare comes and the weapons are in the hands of the terrorist, every single day is a potential 26/11. If we continue being mutes without questions, it is we who have to face the war when it comes knocking on our doorsteps. It is our environment and our trees that are getting replaced by smoke. And to think that weapon trade is all good is certainly a lie. And about legalizing guns because it's going to happen anyway, that's like legally murdering someone and then saying, oh, well, every human has to die someday. That does not make sense. We have to think before acting. And I'm sure with this much advancements in science, we humans are intellectuals. We are the smartest creature out there. And we can figure out a different way where we don't have to massacre children for attaining world peace. Another problem is that all this weapon trade is not ethical. We are not living in some fairyland where everyone's nice people. The interests behind this are always commercial. And guess what? The countries that are benefiting of this are always on the top. And we, the poor people who fall trapped to these things, will always continue being on the bottom. People spend 12 times on war compared to education, because for the people in power, that's 1,000 times more effective. Thank you for this chance and hope you all have a wonderful day. Back to the panel.
Well done, Nabil. Let's see how the judges score that rebuttal. Judges, remember you're scoring Nabil for the rebuttal on the first column on the left, scoring him out of 20. Ma'am, I have your points. Thank you. Mr. Tuck, I can see your scores coming in. Barrett, I have your scores. Thank you. Mr. Tuck, I have your scores as well. Thank you so much. Well, the contestants know this, so I'll tell it for the benefit of everybody else. For the rebuttals, we will show all the scores at the end of everybody's rebuttal. So you'll have to wait until then. As you guys know, I love the suspense. Well, we have Khushi going next. Khushi, if you're around. Yeah, we can see you. Khushi, if you're ready with your rebuttal, we will start your 4 minutes on the clock now.
Sir, I can't hear you.
Okay, sorry, I can see you have some audio problems. Can you just confirm if you can hear me now?
Sir, I can't hear you. Am I audible to you?
I can hear you, but
Can you please type it in the chat?
the one thing that this lockdown has done is made all of us Zoom experts. Every feature is kind of known to everybody now.
Let's start.
Hold on. Can you hear me?
States propose that lethal weapons should be banned because developed countries, by way of selling their weapons to other countries, try and influence the economy.
Just hold on, Kud. I think I better type to her. We'll ask her to hold on until we get a better audio because there's no point missing out on her rebuttal.
I think she's joining back, Shubhayu.
Yeah, we'll just wait for her to join us back. Khushi, we can see you very, very clearly. We'll need an audio check. If you could tell us something else so that we check if your audio is working fine.
Hello, I'm Khushi Dikshit. Am I audible to everyone?
Yeah, perfect now. All right. You can hear me loud and clear?
Yes.
Perfect. If you're ready with your rebuttal, we will start your 4 minutes now.
My opponent mates proposed a point that sale of lethal weapons should be banned because developed countries, by way of selling their lethal weapons to other countries, they try and influence the economic, social, political, and legal environment of other countries in their favor. To this, I want to say that the UNSC has 5 permanent members: US, Russia, France, UK, and China. And given the geopolitical reality, it becomes the responsibility of Government of India to compensate at least one committee member in some form or the other for their support to India. Because China has always sought to bring it to the table at the behest of Pakistan on various important issues in the recent past, like the Kashmir issue. The constant high-value trade of lethal weapons with countries like France has guaranteed us their support and loyalty in the times of crisis, as it was seen in the case of Kashmir and now Galwan, which is very much desirable in the presence of neighbors like China, Pakistan, and now Nepal too, as one of my mates mentioned earlier. But and by being dependent upon international superpowers for their state-of-art armaments, we are actually in a position of strength. So I would like to tell my mates that we are not entering into any kind of trap of America or France by procuring weapons from them, but we are actually acting according to our strategies and playing on our strengths. Additionally, In the present scenario, weapons and arms are not the only things that are lethal, but big data and artificial intelligence are also lethal weapons for surveillance and espionage. This does not mean that we will go on banning their cross-border trade, simply because we fear them flowing into vulnerable hands or regions. Instead, resolutions should be drafted to counter this unwanted flow. Moreover, this trade has allowed the suppressed countries and regions to protest against their oppressor. Hence, here I would state the example of Hong Kong. When UK suspended the trade of potentially lethal weapons with Hong Kong, the people were not left with any equipment for their protests. And after that, it is known to all. Thus, after hearing my opponent's views, I have only strengthened my stance that trade of lethal weapons should not be banned.
Well done, Khushi. Let's see how the judges score you on that rebuttal. Judges, please remember, Khushi scores go in column F of your score sheets. Barrett sir, I have your scores. Thank you. Mr. Tuck, I have your scores as well. Ma'am, I have your scores too. Thank you so much. Kaushiki, you're up next.
Am I audible and visible?
Yes, Kaushiki, we can hear and see you clearly. If you are ready with your rebuttal, we will start your time for the 4 minutes now.
Thank you, sir. Members of the opposition, it is time that you realize the presence of weapons, especially military-grade weapons, in the conflict zone has significant impacts. First, it leads to an increase in lethal and destructive outcomes and overall cost of the conflict. Many local conflicts use weapons like single-shot rifles, but the sophisticated and powerful weapons are sent to the conflicts. There are several consequences. Casualties increased, medical cost increased, and once the parties of the conflict are better armed, they are less likely to negotiate a ceasefire, emboldened by more lethal weapons under their control. Second, it is generally an increase of criminal acts in the conflict areas, armed robberies, domestic violence, hijacking and kidnapping, terrorism, slavery, trafficking of humans and goods. They tend to increase as more firearms become available. How do you establish this, and how can you eradicate this when we have the cross-border sales of lethal weapons? We can never forget what happened in Hiroshima and Nagasaki during the Second World War. Millions are still being affected due to the wartime usage of the atomic bombs by the US. I would like to bring it to your attention. The topic does not say legal or illegal. A sale is a sale whether through governments or by governments to rebels of a nation. The cross-border sale is not always between governments. Members of the opposition have mentioned that if the cross-border sales of weapons are banned, they would lead to an increase in smugglings. If there is smuggling, don't you think a better regulatory authorities need to be set up to stop the smuggling? The markets cannot be opened to the sale of arms. It has been 70 years since Mahatma Gandhi has departed from our midst, but his life and soul continue to animate humanity, transcending national and international boundaries. India is a land of Mahatma Gandhi, who gave the concept of non-violence and satyagraha. It gives the message to the public and to the world to solve the problems with non-violence. During the Rwanda genocide of 1994, members of the Hutu ethnic majority murdered almost 8 lakh people. Israel reports exports of major weapon system to Africa. It is known to have supplied assault weapons to half a dozen of American nations, including South Sudan, Chad, Cameroon, Ivory Coast, the Democratic Republic of Congo, Rwanda, and Swaziland. And it is not a secret that Israel exported arms to Rwanda during the 1994 genocide. The list of catastrophes is long, my dear audience, and it is time the members of the opposition to understand how the cross-border sales of lethal weapon is adversely affecting and destabilizing the world. And hence, the motion stands defeated. Thank you.
Well done, Kaushiki. Some powerful rebuttal there. Let's see how the judges are scoring you. Ma'am, I have your scores. Thank you. Barrett sir, I have your scores as well. Thank you so much. Mr. Tuck, I have your scores too. Shridiksha, you're up next.
Right. So before I start my rebuttal, I would like to remind the members of my opposition that the motion today is that this House believes that the cross-border sale of weapons should be banned and not the illegal manufacture of weapons. Anyway, one of the members of my opposition mentioned that the cross-border sale of weapons will encourage violence and it will contribute to terrorism. And another one of them referred to the issue of increasing crime in society. But do you really think that banning the cross-border sale of weapons will completely eradicate the illegal smuggling of weapons to non-government and terrorist organizations? If you're naive enough to believe that, sure. But in the real world, or should I say the underworld, I certainly do not think so. The movement of weapons will still happen, but this time it will be illegal. It will directly boom the illicit trade of weapons, and the chances of them falling into the wrong hands will be considerably greater. That is why proper policing of illegal trade of the illegal trade of weapons is required and not an official worldwide ban. Besides, a country cannot be politically strong and have the ability to influence other countries to produce policies which suits its interests without a strong military. And a military cannot be strong without the aid of lethal weapons. Greedy or revisionist states develop a strong army to change their territorial status quo, even if it may not be required for its security. China, Pakistan, and Russia are good examples of these revisionist states. So the other nations need to have the military capability to protect itself from such nations. And members of the House, the ban on cross-border sale of lethal weapons would render militarily weak nations helpless. The example of Chechnya is rather relevant in this context. Currently, Chechnya is under the rule of its Russian-appointed leader, Ramzan Kadyrov. A strong economy is a fruit of social stability. A strong military is a guarantor of social stability. And a strong military must have the best available weapons. But we're talking about weapons used by the military, right? As in guns and explosives. But what about biological warfare? We could go back to smallpox in America, or might I say, even the current situation. The spread of possibly fatal diseases can have immense potential to cause mass devastation. The use of such biological warfare can't be banned, can it? Even if it officially is, do you think it can be completely prevented or hindered? Talking of diseases, if any of the nations introduce a COVID vaccine right now, as Russia has recently claimed to, we would obviously expect it to be available worldwide, right? The vaccine is required to protect the people of a nation from the wrath of the virus. Similarly, cross-border sale of weapons for a nation is indispensable in order to save valuable lives from the wrath of its enemies. Thank you. Over to the moderator.
Well done, Shridiksha. Some wonderful rebuttal there. Let's see how the judges are scoring you. Mama, I have your scores. Thank you. Barrett sir, I have your scores as well. Mr. Tuck, I have your scores too. Thank you so much. Well, it's now time for Suhani.
Yes, sir. So should I begin?
Just give me 1 second so that, yeah. Suhani, if you're ready, we will start your 4 minutes now.
As long as weapons continue to exist and get transported, so will the temptation to threaten others with overwhelming military force. We might call ourselves modernized, but our mentality is still stuck in the Rajput period. The more weapons you possess, the more powerful you are. Then what kind of a peaceful world do we long for? My opponents might believe that cross-border weapons are a way to defend rather than attack someone. But let me tell you, and especially Shridiksha, as she said that weapons bring security. Well, let me tell you, we all are living as puppets in the hands of that one leader who will use these fancy weapons to attack and bring destruction and nothing else. And that time we will realize that cross-border and transport of weapons across the country should have stopped long time back. Ordinary people absolutely can't transport war weapons. said by Mr. Chuan from Thailand, who came to power last fall, it's the government's priority duty to solve this problem. It is a game, as I mentioned, where governments of all countries are the players. Weapons are transported to instigate the criminal activities. I emphasize that a burgeoning illicit market that was supplying terrorists and armed groups, the problems of groups possessing such weaponry were not due to the lack of proper export controls or inadequate stockpiles, but that certain states continued to deliberately arm them. We all heard Nabil that owning rifles is more common than to have access to clean drinking water. Weapons are a serious matter, right? That even the basic necessity is left behind. There is no way that the selling weapons at such large scale can prove any relevance, but I would like to quote another example. The recent surge in illegal firearms trafficking from the US into Mexico has helped empower Mexican criminal groups to adopt highly confrontational strategies, contributing to a surge of violence throughout the country. But it is worth noting that in 2004, the US Department of Justice found that following the implementation of the ban, a number of cities and jurisdictions reported declines in the number of weapons recovered from crime scenes. These declines range from 17% to 72%. And as pointed out by Koshiki, if these weapons reach to the terrorist organizations, it will be treacherous. Punjab police seized arms and ammunition after bursting of a terror module of the revived Khalistan Zindabad force on September 22, 2019. The police said and revealed that the weapons were suspected to have been delivered recently across the border from Pakistan over drones launched by Pakistan's ISI and the state-sponsored jihadi and pro-Khalistani terrorist outfits working under its command. In all, 5 AK-47 rifles along with 16 magazines and 472 rounds of ammunition, 4 Chinese-made 30-bore pistols along with 8 magazines and 72 rounds of ammunition, 9 hand grenades and whatnot. A ban will be an obstacle for these people who will think before actually transporting the weaponry. The ban is just a beginning, but unless we do it now, it will be too late to do something in future. This is what is actually happening because of this open selling of deadly weapons, and it has provided a medium for the terrorist organization to seize the opportunity and solve their agenda. In this how the nation wants to be? Do we want to be weeping over this eviscerated, decapitated bodies of children, commuters, concert goers, and the citizens, saying nothing can be done? These firearms have no place in private homes in a civil society. The use of weapons designed just to burn or set fire to large areas, which may be full of civilians, are also prohibited. But we all are already the victims, and yet you believe that lethal weapons have something right, that they shouldn't be banned? Lethal weapons offer us nothing but a balance of terror, and a balance of terror is still terror. Rightly said by George Wand. Thank you.
Well done, Suhani. Some powerful rebuttal there. Let's see how the judges are scoring you. Barrett sir, I have your scores. Thank you. Mr. Tak, I have your scores as well. Thank you. Ma'am, I have your scores. Well, Usaid, you're up next. You did really well in the arguments. Let's see how the rebuttal goes for you. If you're ready, we will start your 4 minutes on the clock now.
Greetings and well wishes to everyone once again. There seems to be a misunderstanding how weapons are used. If I haven't made myself clear enough, in the modern era, weapons are primarily used to maintain peace by enforcing the nation's defense line. The more intimidating the nation, the less likely it is to be attacked. You look at countries like Syria and Palestine, and you'll see what I'm talking about. These countries are oppressed due to their weak defenses. Do we really aspire towards such a world? Secondly, the assumption that legalization of weapons greatly contributes to a significantly increased homicide rate is a totally flawed one. Statistical evidence from the CDC of US shows that only 4 of 100,000 people die because of homicidal firearms. And mind you, this is the US we are talking about, the land where every citizen has a constitutional right to bear arms. On the contrary, Brazil leads the world in firearm homicide, a country where gun laws, although strict, aren't well regulated, further strengthening my argument. My worthy opponents also mentioned Somalia's circumstances, but you see, it plays right into the argument I make. Unregulated firearm laws are worse than no laws at all. The Arms Trade Treaty is here once again. Corruption in the defense industry is estimated to cost over $20 billion a year. Corruption and bribery lead to higher transactional and hidden costs that we don't even know of, often representing a high percentage of the contract total value for these companies that buy them. So if the trade is regulated, it would significantly reduce Africa's violence and even poverty issues simultaneously. And for the proportionality between arms selling and direct conflict, I have only one thing to say. Correlation does not always equal causation. For instance, the illegally annexed Crimea region in Ukraine saw a drastic drop in the conflict after Ukraine reinforced Crimea with a robust defense line, falling right into the argument that I make. Finally, high costs for defense is not a very well thought of argument. We've seen time and time again, and as even my worthy opponents have pointed out, the aftermath of war is never pretty. Would you rather see your cities ablaze with people dying on the streets, or plan ahead and shell out some funds for defense? As Benjamin Franklin very rightfully stated, failing to plan is planning to fail. Besides, the lack of funds in healthcare and other sectors is a direct consequence from corruption and not weapon trade. Because mind you, there are enough funds for all the sectors, but it is the corruption that is siphoning the country. I think I've made it clear enough. Banning something that may cause a danger is never the answer. Rather, we must reinforce what's causing the dangers. Thanks once again.
Well done, Usaid. Let's see how the judges score you on that rebuttal. Judges, we will bother you for just the last set of 3 scores. Ma'am, I have your scores. Thank you. Barrett sir, I have yours. Thank you. Mr. Tak, I have your scores as well. Thank you so much. Well, this is where I get the opportunity to keep you waiting a little bit longer for your scores, because this is where I tell you a little bit about Notebook. Notebook, as most of you all know, is an EdTech brand. We make small, crisp videos that pertain to your school curriculum and help students and teachers use these videos in their classes. What I will do now is show you a short clip of one of the Notebook videos to help you understand what is it that we do. Can we roll the video, please?
Indians thought that the British were hatching a plan to destroy the castes of the Hindus and Muslims living in India and to convert them all to Christianity. No one knew if all this was true, but fear gripped the hearts of common men and women. Panic spread, and British officers could not convince the Indians otherwise. There was a prophecy that British rule in India would come to an end on 23rd June 1857, which was the centenary of the Battle of Plassey. In the Battle of Plassey, the East India Company forces had defeated the Nawab of Bengal and his French allies on the same date in 1757. The discontent brewing among the people of the subcontinent had given them a newfound unity and strength. There were strange rites being followed in many parts of North India, from where the rebellion spread. One such ritual was chapati distribution. A person would visit villages in North India at night and give the watchman a chapati. Then he would ask the watchman to make 5 more chapatis and distribute them in the next village. In the wake of this fear of losing their religious faith and their caste, the sepoys and the commoners rose into action. The sepoys began their action with one signal across their various sites of rebellion. They fired the evening gun or sounded the bugle. Then they captured the bell of arms and looted the treasury. They attacked government buildings, the jail, treasury, telegraph office, record room, and bungalows. They burnt all records. They destroyed everything associated with the British and killed innumerable white men, or the Firangis, as the Indians called them. They organized calls for action for both Muslims and Hindus by putting up proclamations in Hindi, Urdu, and Persian in different cities. Who validated these rebellions and gave the sepoys the strength to launch the mutiny against the British? The old Mughal emperor, Bahadur Shah, gave his blessings to the mutineers. He had no choice. On 11th May 1857, the sepoys had galloped right into the Red Fort without following court etiquette and demanded the blessings of Bahadur Shah Zafar. After receiving his blessings, they carried out the revolts in the name of the emperor.
Well, that was a short clip from one of the Notebook videos. We have here with us Achin Bhattacharyya. Achin is the founder and CEO of Notebook. A chartered accountant by training, he was a director at Deloitte prior to starting Notebook. Achin, if you could have you give your feedback about the debate and just explain the vision behind Zero Hour.
Good afternoon, everyone. Wonderful debate, I must say. Really makes me so happy to see such wonderful standards of articulate, thought-provoking deliberation in our young contestants. Indeed, it has been an edge of the seat thriller. When we conceptualized Zero Hour, this was exactly our vision: to celebrate the art of public speaking by connecting schools and students across the globe, and also to inspire many more to actively work on their public speaking skills, which are as important as your domain skills in any profession. Suhani, Khushi, Kaushiki, Shudikha, Nabil, and Usaid. Wonderful show. I'm really very happy for each one of you reaching quarterfinals and representing your school at Zero Hour is a commendable achievement. And I'm sure your parents, teachers, and friends share your happiness and are very proud of you. Indeed, I'm sure that each one of you will earn many more laurels in the years to come. We have changed the format from quarterfinal onwards and significantly increased the weightage of the rebuttal round, with an objective of promoting listening skills and spontaneity. And I must appreciate how each one of you have stood up to the challenge and demonstrated your quick thinking and logical articulation and deliberation. In any competitive event, beyond a certain stage, the pyramid only gets steeper. So my hearty congratulations to the yet to be announced winners. For other participants, all I'll say is that the better team of the day will win, but I'm confident that every end is a new beginning, and teams which doesn't proceed to the next round will only go from strength to strength and be even better in the days to come. At Notebook, we really aspire to engage with each one of you and work together towards a better tomorrow. With 10,000 videos and more than 1 million users, we are still very much at our infancy. It is our resolve to keep the spirit of our schoolgoers high, and we at Notebook will regularly come up with new thought-provoking ideas to connect with schools and students across the globe to form a unique bonding and passion for excellence among like-minded educators and students. I also thank all stakeholders who have contributed to these wonderful sessions. All the learned adjudicators, it has been a very tough job for them, I'm sure, considering the fact that each one of you have been wonderful. Principals of all the 3 schools for their encouragement, and all teachers and parents who have invested there today for a better tomorrow for their children. Me and my entire team at Notebook salute you for your contribution towards building a better world. I also thank the enthusiastic audience for making Zero Hour a grand success. We already had more than 30,000 people attending Zero Hour and Together for Education webinar. We are indeed humbled and look forward to your support in the days to come. Take care, stay safe, and goodbye. Over to you, Shubhayu.
Thank you, Achin. We're also very privileged to have partnered with Save the Children. Save the Children is an NGO that works across the globe to help children who are either facing the risk of premature death or growing up in hostile environments. They have just finished a century of doing some phenomenal work across the globe. And here is a message from their CEO, Ms. Bidisha Pillai. Can we roll the message, please?
Save the Children was born in 1919. 100 years is not a milestone that many organizations or individuals can claim to have reached. And for us, it's been a tireless, relentless journey to ensure that every child has access to their rights, every child has a voice. But when we look back at 100 years, because 100 is also a time to reflect, we wonder what it would be like to live in a world where children don't need to be saved. Perhaps we could live in a world where Save the Children does not need to exist. And so as we look at the future, we envision a world which is much kinder to its children. A world in which children no longer need to be protected from violence, where children are not needlessly dying before they turn 5, where every child is going to school, is learning, is playing, and is on that path towards fulfilling their full potential. As we turn 100, we pledge to work towards that future of a much kinder and brighter world for children. Every day, every hour, every minute, we will continue on that path. But we also know we can't do it alone. We want to work closely with the communities, with our partners, with the government, and most importantly, with the children themselves. They are going to be the change makers of tomorrow. Children like Onuyara, like Rahul, like Salman, like Mamta, they are the ones who are breaking gender stereotypes. They are challenging social norms, and they are changing the world and the lives of themselves and also children around them. We pledge to continue working with them, alongside them, to ensure that every child gets the right start. I'm Bidisha Pillai, and I invite you to join Save the Children in our commitment to ensure that every child gets the right start.
Well, after those wonderful messages, it is now my job to give you what you've been very patiently waiting for, the scores. So after 6 minutes of arguments and 4 minutes of rebuttals, these are your scores. I shall leave you to do the mental maths and end it here, right? Let me help you out a little bit. These are the school averages. From the both speakers speaking, the new Al Wurood International School, Jeddah, you averaged 156. The Ramjas School, New Delhi, averages 139. And Shri Shikshayatan School, Kolkata, is averaging 149 at this point. And this is where the audience, you get to play a role. You get to choose your favorite speaker for the day, and the school with your favorite speaker gets 20 more points added to their tally, which means given the numbers on the board right now, this could be the decider. So audience, what you will see now is a poll coming up on your screen. The poll would last for a minute. So think well, you've heard all 6 of them speak. So take your pick of the best speaker according to you and place your vote, because you can only place it once. If you're looking at your screen, let me stop the share so that you can. If you are looking at your screen, you would see the poll coming up now. My apologies, ladies and gentlemen. I had put up an earlier poll. We will restart that. My sincere apologies, because we've had so many debates. I believe the wrong poll came up. And good to see that people who are not speaking today also got voted on. I'm sure they appreciate the support, but I'll give you a chance to vote for the ones who did speak just now. As before, you will see the poll coming up on your screen. So please place your votes. As before, you have 1 minute to place your votes. Participants can actually see the poll moving up and down as you place your votes. About 25 seconds in, we've had more than 85% of the votes. We are about halfway there. Almost 90% of the votes are in. Well, for the last 10 seconds. And the poll ends now. On your screen, ladies and gentlemen, the results of the poll today. This was closely fought between all the three schools, but Shridiksha from Shri Shikshayatan school, you have been chosen by the audience as the best speaker of the day with 29% of the votes. Very well done. While I tabulate the final scores and show you how the schools ended up, I would invite the judges for your thoughts about today's debate. Mr. Barrett, if you can start with you, sir.
Thank you, Shubayu. Once again, what a closely fought contest. I was very happy to see some familiar faces on this debate, especially the students from Kolkata and the school from Jeddah. I was looking forward to hearing Mohammed speak again. Each one of you spoke brilliantly. There was no doubt about it. You exhausted every point that I could think of. It is sad that we'll be seeing the end of some of your speakers. It's like Master Chef. When I see a person in Master Chef depart, I feel a bit sad because such a lovely cook, is exiting the show. It's something like that. So Nabil, Mohammed, Sohani, Khushi, Koshki, and Sudesha, you really made the last 1.5 hours really fruitful, and it is so good to be taking part in an international debate with 64 schools. I've never judged such a large debate, and I feel really privileged to be listening to speakers of your caliber. With that, thank you so much, and over to you, Shubayu.
Thank you so much, sir. Ma'am, Devi ma'am, if you could have you give your feedback about the debate today. Ma'am, are you there?
Well, firstly, I didn't expect a debate of this quality. This kind of high quality arguments, high quality information base that the students had. And it was really gratifying to see that, you have prepared so well, and you have so many facts at your fingertips, and your manner of debating is also so good. What I especially liked was, when we were in school, we used to get angry at debates sometimes, but this didn't happen. So it's really, what should I say, for a former teacher, it's a very good experience to have seen what you have been doing, your performance, all of you. Good job.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Mr. Tuck, over to you. If you could have your feedback. We know that you've been a debater in your college days.
Yes, but nothing like what we saw today. Really mesmerizing. And if I could use the word, I'm speechless. I couldn't take my eyes off the screen. And, at least, most of you, in fact, when you were speaking today, it was like really, just too much to handle. You were just too good. And I want to mention to you that, of course, Save the Children, as you saw in our video, we work with deprived children who don't get a chance to go to good schools. So I urge you to follow our work and to also champion child rights, because we believe that children like you need to be a part of the change. And we work with children, and many of our children whom we call child champions or change makers are also featured in the book that I've written this year with Rashmi Bansal. It's called We Are the Champions. Get a chance to take a look at it, please do. But do champion child rights issues even as you grow up, because you've been children and you're so good in your communication skills that we really need your voices to amplify the voices of children who need more support and who are as capable as you perhaps, but they have a lesser chance to be seen and heard. But hats off to you today. And I really enjoyed this. I was also judging yesterday's quarterfinals. And if I can say so candidly, I mean, this group here was, far superior. And, at least 3-4 of you, there was really no chance to even take a mark off in terms of, giving you the points. So I wish those who don't make it through to the next round, better luck in the future. And I'm sure that you will do phenomenal work in debating and everything else that you do in life. So my best wishes to all of you.
Thank you so much, sir. I will now show you your final score tally, which I'm sure you've already calculated in your mind, given how sharp you guys are. A couple of notes from my end, right? We had not expected the scoring to be so close at this stage, because earlier we were scoring you guys out of a total of 100, and we saw scores kept getting bunched up. So we said, let's increase that to 200 and let's spread out the gap. Not happening. You guys are still bunching up in the top 5 percentile of the scores, and that's how good you guys are. Mohammad Usaid, particularly today, I think you joined Jim Laker and Anil Kumble in the ranks of somebody doing a perfect something. And Nadia Comaneci, because you, my friend, got 120 out of 120 for initial arguments from one of the judges, which I think is a very commendable achievement. But the glory of the day goes to Shri Shikshayatan School. We would be sorry to see New Wurood International and Ramjas schools go. You guys have been fantastic, and we hope to see you in our future endeavors. Shri Shikshayatan School winning today's quarterfinal and going on to the semifinals. We will get in touch with you soon with the new schedule. With that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. We hope to see you in about 20 minutes time, because that's when the next quarterfinal is. Until then, take care and goodbye.